Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you here this March 12th on Wednesday. Isn't this a lovely duck? Beautiful. Beautiful. Nature can make some beautiful things out there. Well, Canada is just like they're being squeezed by an anaconda. But this is going to give the United States the impetus that they need to stimulate. And they're going to blame it all on Canada. Well, not everybody's going to blame it on Canada, but Trump is probably, and I'm trying to second guess him a little bit here, but I think the next thing he's going to pull out of the hat is look at what Canada did to our economy. I threw one little tariff at them, and they overreacted, and they've destroyed our economy, and now we've got to stimulate. The markets are down 39,000 on the Dow or whatever. We got to stimulate the economy. Well, they had to all along anyway. You want to blame it on Canada or not, they had to all along anyway. And I've been calling for this. I told you guys we were going to take a little down. I've been saying this for like a year or two. That there's going to be a little downturn ahead before the commodities really take off. Especially the commodities that are outside the dollar. Just think of the things you can invest in outside the dollar. They're going to really take off. Commodities after the downturn's over. And when's the downturn going to end? When the markets turn down into correction territory, and they're almost there, watch the stimulus start to come out of the hat. Just watch. They're going to be calling on the Fed very soon to lower interest rates. They're going to be calling on the Fed to stimulate the economy very soon. And also, we're not just looking at that particular branch of government, the whole thing. They're going to create a crisis, and they're not going to let that crisis go to waste. This is the one I've been waiting for, and it snuck up on me, guys. It snuck up on me. I didn't see it coming. Even though I've been waiting for it for like a year or two. 2 years maybe I've been waiting for it. It snuck up on me. Now it's here. I suddenly see it. Here it is. That downturn's happening right now in the markets. The downturn I was waiting for. The downturn I've been telling you guys about for ages. It's here now. I can just see it coming that Canada is going to take the blame for it all. Meanwhile, Trump has injected Canada with a toxicity, I'm going to call it an economic poison. And now he's going to sit back. Not only probably Canada will take all the blame, probably, but he's going to sit back and wait for that poison to take effect on our economy. I figure it gets our economy low enough and bad enough, he can take us over easily. But Canadians are resourceful, and if they listen to what I said on my last show, what they'll be doing is going out there right now as fast as they can and making new trading partners. As fast as they possibly can. If they don't want to be assimilated by the Borg. You know? Because that's what Canada's facing right now is a simulation. Nothing more, nothing less. But at the same time, they're going to use this as an excuse to stimulate. And that's when we're going to see the commodities really take off. You guys out there have been waiting for this surge in the price of commodities. Massive surge in the price of commodities. It's almost here, and it's going to be something like you've never ever seen before, because the dollar is going to start to lose its purchasing power. So they're going to attack specifically the king amongst commodities is the yellow metal. They're going to attack that big time. They're going to attack all the other commodities, and they're going to send the prices skyrocketing on commodities. And what that's going to do is that's going to translate into much higher inflation, and they're already putting these 25-50% tariffs, whatever, even 200. I heard 250% tariffs. Honest to gosh, you think that's not going to have a profound effect upon inflation? You just wait until you go in to buy something. That's like levying a 25% hike, sudden hike in the price of everything all across the board. Oh man, oh man, oh man, we're in for some big changes coming here, because this is finally it. The dollar, the American dollar is going to start to hyperinflate. I think the Canadian dollar is going to hyperinflate even quicker. But a caveat in all of that is we're going to enter in the starting spot of hyperinflation, which is what they call the acceleration phase. And we're going to see profound inflation like we've never seen before. And that's what leads into the hyperinflation. And I'm going to tell you, I think that it's what they want. There's two directions they can move with all this. One is bankruptcy, because they're, what is it, trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars in debt, and it ain't going away. And it's increasing and ever increasing. And there comes a point where the debt to GDP ratio gets unmanageable, and it gets too hard to service all of that debt. They need a way out, and the way out is inflation. They're not going to pick the route of austerity to try to use that as a way out, because it would completely collapse the entire economy, and it would mean their jobs. They ain't going to take that route. They're going to take the inflationary route, which is a tax on all the citizens. If you're going to deal with what we call money, which is actual, in America it's Federal Reserve notes, here it's the notes from the Bank of Canada. If you're going to deal with those, you're going to deal with the inflation that comes with them, and nobody's going to want them in the end. We're going to see prices increase until the point where the citizens of these countries start to squeal. They're like, we can't afford anything. We're starving here. There's going to be the ultimate result, and it can lead to social unrest and chaos, ultimately, when your currency actually does that. But in the end, it has to lead to a reset of some sort or another. And, for the last 7 years, I've been talking about this reset, and the reset is going to be back to something. They're going to have to put hard money or hard assets behind their paper Ponzi scheme. It's not okay any longer just to take a piece of paper, print something on it, print the picture of your king on it, and call it a one denarii, $1, 1 franc, one whatever you want to call it, 1 mark. It doesn't matter what you call it, but it's all the same thing. It's just a piece of paper with something printed on it. You got to have something. See, getting back to the 3 fundamentals of money, you got fungibility. Well, these currencies out there are all fungible. Fungible meaning you can exchange one $5 note for somebody else's $5 note, and they're worth exactly the same thing. That's a very big requirement of money, and paper money fits that requirement. The second requirement is store of value. Yeah, you can take some of those paper notes, put them in a safe, leave them there for 6 months, come back and get them, and they still have value. They still go out there and spend them or whatever. So it fits the bill of a store of value. But it also has to be limited in supply. It's one of the big aspects of money. 3 big aspects of money. It's limited in supply. And this is the problem with these paper currencies is the politicians all out there, they use them, one, to pander to their constituency, to pander to their followers out there, their loyal supporters and stuff. They use the paper currencies for that, and that has to print more. Let's print some more. We got to give them to Bob and Billy and all the people who supported me in my election or whatever, And we got to do all these projects that make the politician look great, but they borrow money to do all of them. And after a while, it just keeps getting to be a bigger and bigger outstanding pile of money they borrow, because when they create these paper currencies, they do not create the part where the interest is. So maybe it's $1,000 they're borrowing to make a new road or whatever, Of course, that's just an example. Of course, it costs billions, but let's say $1,000 they borrow to build a new road. They get lent that $1,000 from the central bank. Now they owe it back, but they owe it back with interest. But the central bank never created the interest, the money. They only create the principal. The interest accrues over generations, decades, centuries even, into an enormous pile bigger than all the outstanding money that they have. But they never created that money to pay the interest. And so the interest has to keep growing larger and larger and larger because they never created that money, ever. It's the definition of a Ponzi scheme. When the interest pile gets so big and the interest owed on that pile, no matter how low they make the interest rates, you can't support that amount of it's kind of like if you spent too much money on your credit cards, which is the same deal in the end. And maybe you take out another credit card to pay off the first credit card, so on. In the end, it gets to be so you can't do it. And this is the same way. It just takes a lot longer because this is a lot bigger game. It just takes a lot longer. But we're getting there. We're there. And now they're searching for this way out. An excuse to keep this game going a bit longer because they know that eventually it gets to a point where you just can't. You can't. The outstanding debt is so large that you can't borrow your way out. But at this point, we're not there yet. They can still do a few of these borrowing things and make it bigger. They can. And so they're going to keep up with that. But it's going to erode at the purchasing power of the underlying currency tremendously. Especially when you get to the end stages of this game because people start to lose confidence in the purchasing power. We're there. And what do? They switch back over and they start to value commodities more, which should have had intrinsic value all along. But then this is all part of the game. I mean, they work these games to make commodities worth less than what they're supposed to be worth by using derivative products to make it look like there's more of the commodity than what there really is. So this is all part of the game too. So what they do is they create all these derivative, doesn't matter if it's corn, wheat, soybeans, or the ones they do the most is the precious metals, but still, I mean, it's like a derivatives game, but they do it with everything. They do it with stocks, they do it with everything. They create derivative and then they give it nominal value, and this is only part of the monetary expansion of creating this extra fugazi, of creating leverage within the system. And the system's so levered up right now, I mean, to the tune of, if the leverage disappeared, it would expose how in debt the system really is, and the money would start to disappear, and it would just vaporize. The system would freeze. And there is the danger of that happening if they don't get in there and support the system with more liquidity. And so that's the excuse right now. I think this is a big excuse. The economy's turned down. Now we got to support it with more liquidity. They'll come in, and they will. It's a big borrowing spree, and they keep going ever higher with this. And when does the time come when the whole thing folds in on itself and collapses? Is when they cannot even make the minimal payments on the outstanding debt that they owe. When it becomes so large as percentage to GDP that it's... So they got a ways to go yet before they get there, to where they can easily pay off the and keep this thing going for a while longer yet. But the price they're going to pay is inflation, and in the ending stages, hyperinflation, and a population that becomes ever poorer and poorer, because as they play this game, the longer they play it, the more impoverishes the citizens. Okay, so looking at the United States, for instance, going back like to uh, say 1914 or whatever, they they really started to play this game and slowly impoverish when the first impoverishment was the Great Depression in the United States. And it's been ever slowly, it's like being a frog being boiled in oil. It's been ever slowly increasing over the years until people look back and they say, hey, you know what? I remember in the 1950s when just one person in our family had to work and we could afford to take a vacation every year. There were 7 people in our family. Our father worked in the 1950s. We could afford a vacation. We could afford to put money away in the bank. We paid our house mortgage off, etc., etc., etc. Just one person working. Okay. Now both people are working and they're not supporting 7 kids. And they're in debt and getting deeper in debt all the time with 2 people working in the family. This is the impoverishment I'm telling you about. And what's causing it is this behind the scenes exponential function that you can't see, that's been there all along. And you can follow that exponential function by looking at, you ever seen that picture of the dollar bill and it shows how the value of it's been chewed away over the last 100 years? And now it's only 2% of what it, of the 100% it was like back 100 years ago. You ever seen that picture? That's a perfect illustration of the impoverishment that's coming on the people as well from this exponentially large Ponzi scheme that they've got running, that they've had running since 1914, the central bank. Now, this is their excuse to come in, and there's not a lot of the central banks becoming less and less popular, the central banks of the world, because the people are starting to see this game that they've been running with these fiat currencies, this Ponzi scheme that they run our whole financial system on, that has absolutely no value whatsoever, and it's totally leveraged, and it leverages itself against the common citizen or the common man to his own detriment. And in the end, it'll completely impoverish each and every single person in the world so that they can print this money from nothing and use it to buy countries with, use it to buy all of the precious things of the earth, use it to buy your mortgages. What do you think those mortgage-backed securities that the Fed was buying a little while ago were? That's your homes. They packaged them all up into what's called a security. They'll take like 1,000 people's homes, their mortgages, pack them up into what they call a mortgage-backed security, and then they sell it. And whoever buys it buys your mortgage. So they own your home. You're making payments to them. What do they use to purchase all that? Well, they just start the printing presses up, make a borrow money to, and it's just part of the way this system runs. But I mean, I could go on and on. But thank you guys for listening, and you guys have a great day. Bye bye.